What are you doing, you nosy nerds? They have their own style and substance. Always been influencers. Now we're entering Glastonbury Abbey.
There's been a mishap.
In fact, this is the crypt area.
Look at this beautiful inversion.
Bones of King Arthur. I'll live
Gorgeous.
to 1,000 just via tea and sandwiches. Hello,
Hi,
this is Kerry.
and this is Kat.
And we are tea in Valhalla.
And you join us today in Super Somerset.
You do. We're in Glastonbury.
Yes.
And we're going to do a really early morning walk up Glastonbury Tor
Yep.
and just enjoy the sights of Glastonbury, really.
A little bit of an explore of this magical and mysterious place. We're going to take you on a little tour of this area.
Little tour, that's very good.
Can take you up the tour and a little tour of the area.
Yeah, just of Glastonbury. It's very beautiful. It's got lots of street art, lots of the houses are painted.
Yep.
And it's extremely spiritual. So it's one of those places where there's lots of healing wells and health places for healing the soul. And at the start of the year, I said I wanted to not just be physically stronger, but a bit mentally stronger.
Yes, connecting to different things,
Yes,
isn't it?
absolutely. It's worth.
Yeah.
It's worth trying everything.
Exploring
Sort of-
every avenue.
Yeah, and expand your mind. Look at that beautiful rising sun. It's making this halo of colour. Incredible.
Look at this beautiful inversion.
It almost looks like a sea from here as well, because technically that was the sea.
Yeah,
So all of that is marshland out there. That's the Avalon Marshes. It's absolutely gorgeous.
stunning, yeah, stunning.
That's why they used high points like this since the Neolithic man
Yeah,
to build on top of. Important
Keep
point
live.
to live, because everything
Oh.
else is water. Tor itself has been visited for thousands of years and is littered with Iron Age artefacts. But the summit itself has had several different buildings constructed upon it since the Saxon era, since around 5th century, mostly all for religious and worship reasons. But all that's left now is the roofless tower of St Michael's Church, which has had to be restored a few times now. But just standing here, you can really feel why people chose this as their place of worship. A lady I just met who is a priestess of Bridget told me that this lady out here, depicted up here as the milkmaid, Saint Bridget, also known as the goddess Bridget. They're actually one in the same, but obviously depending on your denomination is how you receive Bridget. But yes, so that's really interesting, because obviously it was really important around here. It is now known that monks did have dairies. They ran dairies, which they didn't realise they did for quite a while. Which looks like the scales is the judgment of a soul. It's judging the soul of a person on their death. lovely young man just played his handmade flute. It's beautiful. I nagged him a little bit, but he said he was going to play anyway. Come on then, you.
Where are we going to go? We're going
straight off the edge.
Going straight off the edge? Oh my lord.
Is there any actual steps here?
I think...
Can we just go?
I think we can.
Let's go.
I'll follow you. As you can tell by the mud on the camera at the moment, there's been a mishap. I may have fallen over. Hold on, let me give you a clean.
I've got some normal tissue. Kerry fell over with a great big thud.
I can't help but feel Kat trapped me.
What I thought was the path, and it is just a path people had made.
I think she knew what she was doing. She's after my life insurance.
Very wet and slippery. I'm back on the actual path now. Sorry, my bad.
Murder on the Tor. Going to head through the Avalon Orchard next.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Pretty little archway.
Beautiful Avalon Orchards. So Glastonbury itself used to be called Avalon. And it just literally means Isle of Apples, and that's because there were so many orchards in the area. And they were really important because obviously they were food and drink source, but they were also a place of learning and gathering. So people used to gather in orchards. So this is where you would learn to graft trees, learn how to fertilise plants, and obviously how to crop, how to create alcohols. Really important area just for learning. That goes all the way back to the Iron Age times. To modern day, there is still an Avalon Orchard, produces and sells British apples of different varieties. Just goes to show how productive this area really was. It's probably why it's been lived in for so long. In fact, not too far from here is one of the oldest existing roads, trackways in the world. This place is very strange. Look at that. There's an actual blossom on this apple tree. That is probably the earliest blossom I've ever seen. So you see here, someone's tied a little ribbon on this tree. Sometimes that can be a thankful thing, especially with food-bearing trees. Often gifts are given for what you take. They can also be in remembrance of somebody, or to tell someone who's passed on that you remember them. And it's also for things like dreams, wishes, things you want to see happen in the future. Oh. Kerry, did you notice mistletoe? Piece of mistletoe. Now mistletoe is an unusual thing. It's obviously, it is a parasite. It's become very rare now in Britain. And yeah, you can see it as a parasite. It's able to spread normally via birds' droppings actually. It's the inside the berry, the seed.
Is that through all of these and these little tufts?
Yep, all those tufts of mistletoe. You can see the berries are white berries. So if a tree is particularly old or damaged,
yeah.
It can actually unfortunately kill the tree. It doesn't try to kill the tree, but sometimes it can take too much from the tree. It takes too many nutrients. Exactly. It's so peaceful here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we decided we might have just something to eat here, because once we get back into Glastonbury and start walking around Glastonbury, we probably won't want to sit down and have anything to eat, will we?
No. Cheers. Good health.
Yeah, good health. Oh, that brings good health. I'm sorry,
That's
but it
nice,
does. It does.
Yeah.
It brings good health.
I'll tell you what else brings good health. Sandwiches.
Oh, sandwiches all day long.
Sandwiches.
I'll live to 1,000 just via tea and sandwiches. At the moment, we're on the road at the bottom of the Tor. We're going to go walk around and then back into Glastonbury. Have a good look around Glastonbury. See what they've got going. Still heading back into Glastonbury now along these sort of little back streets and over little fields.
So we're just coming through Bushy Coombe now, which is like a farmland.
It's private, but there's a public footpath running through it. And Chalice Hill has actually got a lot of legends attached to it, a lot of Arthurian legends attached to it. But also Joseph of Arimathea was believed to be the person who was responsible for burying Jesus. Holy Grail legend is also attached to Joseph of Arimathea. The Holy Grail was meant to have travelled with him here. That was attached to Arthur, because Arthur was meant to have got his divine grace from drinking from the Holy Grail. He was overtly powerful and stuff, and so everyone thought he had like a divine power.
Interesting.
I don't know.
It's good though, isn't it? I mean, these tales and stories, they've stood the test of time and they all get added to and embellished on, and
that's right.
I love them. I think they're brilliant. Worth noting today, we've managed to find a little section of free parking.
Yeah, legal on the
totally legit, not obstructing anything or anyone. We're in the sort of Glastonbury,
bay,
but it's very limited access for parking and lots of pay display areas.
Yeah, obviously it's not too bad this time of year, but in the summer it is extremely busy here. So
yeah, and obviously when they do Glastonbury Music Festival, this is...
Oh, it's happening this year as well.
Yeah.
The festival is back on this year.
Worth mentioning, obviously, when you've heard of Glastonbury Music Festival, this is Glastonbury of the music festival.
It is, yeah.
That takes over. That will literally bring this area to a standstill.
Yeah.
These prayer wheels are full of thousands of prayers. Traditionally, they are turned clockwise by passing pilgrims. Turning the wheel sends the prayers out into the world. Please feel free to turn them as you pass.
What should I wish for? Just goodness. Let me think. I've got to feel positive. 1 second. Actually felt really nice doing that. Strangely, yeah. One thing you do notice that as a majority of houses here, they have their own style and substance. Some people like it flashy, but everyone's different and they bring a little style to their own homes. It's a very interesting place, isn't it?
It really is, yeah, and they're not afraid to show it either.
There's no fear of their own style. Yeah, in fact, if anything, if you're not bringing your own style, then you're a little bit out of place here. We're also walking alongside the old Abbey wall, so we're sort of skirting around the Abbey. I'm hoping to see the ruins on the other side, but I've got no idea yet. Touch wood.
So just out in the main Glastonbury High Street at the moment. Try my best not to get run over. We've got the St John's Church here. Yeah, it's lovely. Again, very busy little place, so won't disturb people too much.
Beautiful artisan shops everywhere along here. Glastonbury Tribunal, ancient monument.
George and the Pilgrim, a hotel there. I mean, look at that for a hotel.
Sort of thing I want in the garden.
To work our way up towards the Abbey.
Now we're entering Glastonbury Abbey, the burial place of the legendary King Arthur and the beautiful Guinevere. To remind us of the humidity and achievements of Cedric, 10th century monk of Glastonbury Abbey, Archbishop of Canterbury, and those like him who built up this place in the glory of God. The Duke of Gloucester unveiled this. Little apple, look, just like we were talking about before.
Got a lizard as well down here.
Oh yeah, what's the lizard representing? So this is St Patrick's Chapel. Abbeys did often have smaller chapels spread out on its grounds. And this particular chapel is for St Patrick. And it is stunning. There's hand-drawn paintings on every single wall. I'm not au fait with Christianity, if I'm honest, not particularly. My presumption is that this is St Patrick. Apologies if it isn't. I only think that because of the snakes at the bottom of it and his faithful hound. So this beautiful archway that Kerry has just walked through is actually original to one of the old coaching inns that stood here. amongst the ruins of the abbey. A 17th century pub actually, the White Hart. These beautiful old trees, and this one here being propped up at the front of the St Patrick's Chapel. The Glastonbury Thorn. So as the story goes, Joseph of Arimathea, reputedly related to Jesus, came ashore close to Wirral Hill. He's always depicted with a staff, and he planted his staff into the ground, and so grew
the thorn of Glastonbury.
That's right. Adds the belief that these trees are divine is that it always flowers at Christmas time and Easter. And actually it was Joseph of Arimathea who decided he wanted to bring Christianity to British shores. So the story goes, there's no actual historical proof that that was the case, but it is a story that has been told for a long time, probably well over 1,000 years. This story has been bandied about, and that is why the abbey stands in Glastonbury today, and Wirral Hill just a stone's throw away from Glastonbury Abbey. It is also believed that that is where St Bridget came ashore. 3 tours here, so I'm just going to catch a little bit of one.
Now they would have had to have come here at least from the continent by sea and river, and you can imagine them mooring their vessel on the local river, the River Brew, and walking up Wirral Hill to see where they'd arrived, to get the lay of the land.
And this beautiful old chapel behind us was the first to be built after the Great Fire in the 11th century, and it's dedicated to Mary, just like its predecessor that was made out of wood and had a lead roof. This now stone building was also dedicated to Mary. This is the underneath of the chapel that we're walking on now. In fact, this is the crypt area. It's hard to believe that during the dissolution of the abbeys and the monasteries, this whole crypt, this whole bottom floor here was entirely filled in with rubble and earth. They just wanted to destroy it, wanted to wipe it out of the history books. Must have been painstaking to remove all of that. So the crypt at the end of the Lady Chapel is the crypt of St Joseph, or St Joseph of Arimathea. Are you coming in?
Where are you going?
Back into the crypt of Chapel of St Mary. Go on. The people that run the abbey have decided to keep it under glass so people can still see the original water source to this chapel. The original ornate arch over this as well. Tells you how important this water source was to them. This was indeed a holy well. Outside of St Mary's Chapel, there's a little graveyard area where they believe they dug up the bones of King Arthur and Guinevere. Some say it was the monks' idea of drumming up business, build the great church, because people were very interested in the Arthurian legends and they were happy to pour money into the area due to the idea that they had dug up Arthur and Guinevere.
Because the monks had described the remains, one being colossal and big in stature.
Yeah, and got battle wounds.
Battle wounds, and the other was much finer and prettier in shape,
Yeah.
and petite.
And still had her golden hair after hundreds of years. You know, it really did work, because then more people were willing to donate money and come along, and it was also tourism. It made enough money to start building the Great Church, which is what you can see behind us here, and that was being built for over 100 years, and even then they had many alterations done. The Abbey Church itself was the largest of its kind, stretching all the way from St Mary's Chapel all the way down to the spire on the far end. It was 177 metres, built about the same time as Wells Cathedral. It would have been magnificent. This is the point where the monks chose to have the bones of King Arthur and Guinevere reburied from their original grave. So from the dissolution of the monastery, which is about mid-1500s, all the way up to early 1900s, unfortunately parts of the monastery was taken away, practically used as a quarry, just taking the stone as willy-nilly. But in the early 1900s, the Church of England said, okay, we're going to buy this and we're going to start protecting it for the sake, you know, for heritage sake. This area at the back of the Great Abbey is the Church of St Andrew. So this little area here is chapel for St Thomas a Becket, or Thomas the Martyr, St Thomas the Martyr as he was also known. So this area is the abbot's cloisters, and that's pretty much their domestic area, so where they slept, ate and was cared for. Over here is their sleeping quarters, very much like a barracks of sorts, just beds lined up. This area here was actually part of the cloister and the garden, so that's literally just a covered walkway that went right round the gardens themselves, and the gardens would obviously feed most of the monks. This is where they ate, so this was their eating area. They ate very simply things like stews or soups with bread, but they were allowed
8 pints of ale
a day,
A day.
and a pound of bread.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm signing up. So the monks themselves always lived quite sparsely, as we were saying. Their sleeping quarters were like barracks, and they were devotional. Even at food times, they were allowed 2 meals a day, but they would eat in silence. It was always very simple food, and they were a simple people for most of the monasterial time. For the last perhaps 150 years before the dissolution of the monastery, of the abbey itself, perhaps they were a bit more lavish, but on a whole they lived quite a simple life. The person who didn't was the abbot, who runs the abbey, and this is how it looked, which is a stark difference to the barrack style sleeping quarters and and you know, wooden benched room where they had to sit and eat in silence. But the reason for this was the abbot would invite dignitaries and the well-to-do and the sort of famous, and they would sort of wine them and dine them, sometimes in hopes of patronage and sometimes in hopes of spreading the word and influencing people. There's always been influencers. It's not a new thing, as much as people like to pretend it was. It's just been done in different ways over different centuries. Compared to, so the ruins back there, they're just very plain, straight corridors, but this is ornate. Almost looks like a manor house, it's that pretty. Let's go inside, let's see what it looks like. See how that abbot was living whilst the monks were over there in the cold.
So gardens were an important feature of all English Benedictine monasteries. Documentary sources tell us that the Glastonbury Abbey had a great garden and a little garden, as well as an orchard, vineyard, herb garden, vegetable plots, flower beds and horse pastures. Kitchen garden was essential.
And the reason it was essential for the monks is they were
vegetarians.
They were highly vegetarian. It's very unusual they'd eat meat. Apparently they would occasionally have fish, and mostly because animal rearing obviously took up a lot of space. Oh, there's kale. We love a bit of kale in my house. Yum, yum, yum. Don't poke the kale, cat. Oh, so they've done it within the original footprint, have they? So these are the herb gardens, and they tell you what all of them do. Lemon balm, this is something my father used to make me have when I had colds. Obviously Romans brought it over, like they brought a lot of herbs over. Got a bit of soap water here, and apparently they used it in place of soap. So apparently the saponin content in it, inside the plant itself, actually lathers up. So they used it like a soap. Oh, that's why they called it soap water. Very clever. I mean, this is how I like it. I like it when they name it for what it does. Makes life easy for me. What have you got here, old boy? Looks quite happy, doesn't he? So the water that fills here is, you know, I was talking about Chalice Hill and the Chalice Well. The water that flows into here is from that spring. It's just been diverted, and this was made in early 19th century, this. It's got carp in it, tench in it and rudd in it.
So we've had a brilliant day here in Glastonbury.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, really has. This morning up on the Tor with that inversion,
inversion,
beautiful.
yeah.
Just walking around, seeing all the sort of personality and life they've given to this beautiful town.
All the street art as well has been a real highlight for me.
Really nice. But visiting the Abbey, which I've never done before, I've never seen the Abbey.
Yeah.
I've seen it from the road a few times, and I've never actually seen it. So this has been really good.
Free tours as well, which is a massive bonus. So if you have enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give us a little thumbs up. Drop us a little comment down below. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell notification so you know when we upload more videos. Until next time, stay safe and well.
And keep enjoying those green spaces. Take
Goodbye.
care.
Bye everyone.